Okay, we'll start back with number 3 on exercise 14.2, page 830. Here we're dealing with 10-year term again. Interest is payable semi-annually. Stated rate's 12%. The effective rate or market rate is 10%. So here, you guys, we know this cash proceeds number before we start is going to be, not sure what happened there, is going to be greater than $1 million or greater than the face amount, which is $1 million. Because the issuing corporation is paying 12% interest on their bonds, when the normal market rate paid by other corporations of similar risk is only 10%. So the investing public will be willing to pay more for these bonds, more than the face amount up front, because they're receiving a higher than market rate of interest over the 10-year term. Okay, so let's figure out the cash proceeds. Remember, it's a 4-step process. We'll start with the face amount. It wouldn't always be $1 million, of course, you guys. Typically would be a number quite a bit larger than that. It's just $1 million on all of these. We'll go to a factor from the table, present value of $1. Again, that's on page P-2 in the back of your book. But what are we dealing with here? Well, in 10 years, interest payable semi-annually, so we have 20 interest payment periods. Paying interest 20 times, twice a year for 10 years. At what rate? Well, in our present value calculations, we use the market or effective rate. It's 10% for a year, so it's going to be 5% every 6 months. So we'll go to our table, present value of $1. Again, on page P-2, come down to 20 periods and across to 5%. I get 0.37689. Okay, now we'll multiply that number by the face amount. And we get $376,890, which is what the $1 million to be received 10 years from now, with interest payable every 6 months at 5%. That's what it would be worth in today's dollars. Okay. Now we want to know how much interest the issuing corporation is going to pay every 6 months. Well, we'll take the face amount. And since we're doing semi-annual interest, we'll take half the stated rate. Stated rate was 12%. Half that's going to be 6%, of course. We get 60,000. Okay, now 60,000 every 6 months for 10 years. How much is that worth today? Well, we'll say 60,000. All right, now we're still going to use these 20 interest payment periods at 5%. Same thing we used above. And I think you see how we get that, right? The bond term is 10 years. Interest is payable twice a year. So that's 20 interest payment periods. We always use the market or effective rate in our present value calculations. You use the stated or contract rate in determining how much interest they'll pay annually or every 6 months. So our market or effective rate here on number 3 is 10% for a year, so every 6 months it would be 5%. So we'll go to our table, present value of an ordinary annuity. Again, that one's on page P-4. Okay, we'll come down to 20 periods and across to 5%. 12.46221. Then we're going to multiply those together. $747,733 is the present value of the interest payments, or what, $60,000 every 6 months for the next 10 years, assuming interest payable, well, assuming an interest rate every 6 months of 5%. In today's dollars, that's only worth $747,733. Now, to get the cash proceeds from the bond issue, we add together our two present values. Okay, $376,890, present value of the face amount. And the present value of the interest payments, $747,733. And then we're going to sum those two. Now the cash proceeds from the bond issue are more than the face amount of $1 million. That's because the issuing corporation is paying a contractor stated rate of 6% every 6 months, when the market rate for similar investments was only 5% every 6 months. So the investing public is willing to pay more than the face amount for these bonds because the interest rate they're paying is higher than the market rate of interest. Excuse me. That excess above $1 million, the $124,623, is called a premium on bonds payable. Up here, when the amount was less than $1 million, that's what, $114,704. $114,704. I believe that's right, just off the top of my head. That difference between the cash proceeds and face amount here is called a discount on bonds payable. And those accounts would be grouped with bonds payable on the balance sheet in the liability section, of course. All right, let's go to number 4. Let's take a look at it. The stated rate is 12% when the market or effective rate is only 10%. So we know here that there's going to be a premium again because the issuing corporation is paying a rate of interest higher than the market rate. Face amount's $1 million. Okay, what are we dealing with here in terms of interest payment periods? 20 years, interest payable semi-annually. So we're dealing with 40 interest payment periods at what percentage each? Well, we're going to use the market or effective rate in these calculations. Excuse me, it's 10% for a year, so it's 5% every 6 months. We'll go to our table. Present value of $1 on P-2 in the back of your book. Come down to 40 periods, that's all the way at the bottom, and across to 5%, 0.14205. Then we'll multiply these two together. You get $142,050. See, that's pretty amazing, isn't it, you guys? $1 million to be received 20 years from now, assuming interest is paid every 6 months at the rate of 5%. That amount is only worth $142,050 today. Excuse me. Something caught in my throat. So, like we talked about before, if you invested $142,050 today and got paid interest every 6 months of 5%, and that interest was added back to this amount, then at the end of 20 years, you'd have $1 million. Okay, so now we want to know how much interest this corporation is going to pay every 6 months, so we'll say $1 million. The stated rate on number 4 was 12%. Half that would be, of course, 6%. And that's 60,000. So now we want to know the present value of the semi-annual interest payments. Well, they were $60,000. Again, we're dealing with 40 periods. Remember, this part is the same if you're doing the present value of a $1 or single sum in step 1, or if you're doing the present value of an ordinary annuity in step 3, excuse me. Alright, so we're going to go to our table, present value of an ordinary annuity on P-4. P as in poltergeist. And 4 is in the number after 3. Okay, so we'll come down to 40 periods on our present value of an ordinary annuity of $1 table. Come down to 40 periods and across to 5%. You get 17.15909. Okay, now we'll multiply it out. Okay, we get 1,029,545. Now to get the amount of cash that the issuing corporation is going to receive on the day these bonds are issued, we'll add together the present value of the face amount, $142,050, and the present value of the interest payments, $1,029,545. We'll sum those. And cash received by the issuing corporation on number 4 would be $1,171,595. Again, that excess over $1 million would go into an account called premium on bonds payable. And you guys, they're receiving more than the face amount for the bonds when they're issued, because their interest rate, the interest rate they're paying 6% every 6 months, is higher than the market rate of interest for corporations with a similar credit rating, which is only 5% every 6 months. I said only like that's a bad thing. 5% every 6 months would be pretty awesome, really. Hope you guys are doing well. Please be in touch if I can help you with any of this stuff. We got one more to knock out here. You're probably getting tired of these a little bit, but maybe it's hammering the point home. I hope so. Again, our face amount's $1 million. Let's take a look at number 5, though. It's kind of a bit of a trick question here. The term, nothing tricky there, 20 years, interest payable semi-annually, so 40 interest payment periods. No big deal there. But notice the stated rate and the effective rate are the same. Well, I can tell you what this number is going to be already. The bonds will be issued at their face amount, $1 million, if the stated rate and the market or effective rate are equal. Now let's see if we get back to that. We might miss it by $1 or $2 just due to rounding on some of these factors from our tables. But we're going to get really close to this number if we don't hit it exactly. And the reason why the bonds are issued at their face amount, well, there's no discrepancy between the rate of interest being paid by the issuing corporation and the market rate of interest on the day the bonds are issued. If the two are the same, then the bonds should be issued at their face amount. So here, we're dealing with 20 years semi-annually, so 40 interest payment periods at, okay, the market or effective rate was 12% for a year, so it would be 6% every 6 months. Okay, so we'll go to the table, present value of $1. It's again on P2. Come down to 40 periods and across to 6%. Got 0.09722. So what, $1 million to be received 20 years from now, with interest payable every 6 months at a rate of 6%, and that interest will be added back to the balance each time. That amount's only worth $97,220 today. See how much easier it is, you guys, to make money if you have money? See, the reverse is true here as well. If you invest $97,220 today, and you earn 6% every 6 months, and that amount's added back to the balance, then you earn 6% again the next month. If you leave that alone, you earn 6% every 6 months for this 20-year period. At the end of 20 years, your $97,220 is turned into $1 million. Now, what you're trusting here with these corporate bonds is that the corporation stays in business and they're able to pay their debts. If they file bankruptcy, you're out of luck. Now, and of course, the riskier the company, the higher the interest rate they're going to have to pay. But I guess the more likely they are to file bankruptcy too. So it's kind of a catch-22. All right, let's figure out the interest here and bring this thing on home. We've got $1 million face amount. The stated rate on number 5 is also 12%. So 6% every 6 months, 60,000. Semi-annual interest is 60,000. Okay, again, we'll use the 40 periods. At 6%. So we go to our table, present value of an ordinary annuity, on page P-4. Okay, we come down to 40 periods and across until we find 6%. 15.04630. $902,778. Let's see how close it got. We'll take the present value of the face amount, $97,220, and the present value of the interest payments, $902,778. It's gonna be pretty close to $1 million, isn't it? $999,998. You guys, that's not $1 million. Only because those factors that we're using here are not carried out all the way. Those are at some point rounded after, what, 5 decimal places. So we're off by $2. You wouldn't even have to make these calculations, you guys, if the 2 rates were equal. The issuing corporation would just debit cash for $1 million and credit bonds payable for $1 million if the 2 rates are equal. You debit cash on one of these, you debit cash here for this amount, credit bonds payable for $1 million, and credit the premium for the difference. Premium on bonds payable. If you had a discount like here, you debit cash for this amount, credit bonds payable for $1 million, and debit discount on bonds payable for the difference. What is that? $113.8 and $8, something like that. I might this math in my head. Please don't trust it. If you guys have questions, please let me know. We'll continue on with these chapter 14 exercises, and I hope you enjoy them. Thanks.